So who's at the house across the street? Is that your
Recording.
son or?
Nobody.
It's Tuesday, October 8th, 2024. The time is 7:00 PM. I call this meeting to order. Roll call.
Councilmember Woods? Fine.
Here.
Luck? Hendricks? Christensen? Councilmember?
Here. Next item is approval of the agenda. You all are looking at the agenda that was printed out today. We're removing item 4, which is a second approval of consent agenda. We're also going to remove item 5 and that one at the next meeting. 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We're adding committee. Next item is approval of the consent agenda. 3.1 regular meeting, September 10, 2024 minutes and minutes from September 24, 2024. And 3.2 approval of bill is dated October 4, 2024 and payroll ledger dated October. Consent agenda. Second. Discussion.
Christensen? Luck?
Yes.
Mora?
Yes.
Fine.
Yes.
Woods?
Yes.
Bear?
Next item. Item 4 is supposed to be the comments. Up next is citizen comments. Facing for the second approval of consent agenda. Citizens are asked to live 5 minutes. Council will take comments in and may engage with dialogue, but probably not. And this is off the cuff. You'd think I've been, think I'd know it better after doing it every other week. Let's see. So I have 2 sign-in sheets. The first one I got featured Sally Queen. If you would, come on up to the podium, state your name and address for the record. And
Thank you so much for the opportunity. And first, we want to say thank you so much for your sponsorship of the Vintage Baseball Game. It was our 5th annual and we won 4 out of 5. And so we've been invited to the World Series Summit Sluggers.
yes.
We're not sure what that means, but it was a great community event in the town park and a fun day right up until it rained. But it was a great, and we appreciate the town's game sponsorship. So thank you very much. But I'm here today to also say thank you for, and if you'll pass those around as far as they'll go, say thank you for your prompt response to the intergovernmental agreement. So we discovered in June that none of the historical properties that we have maintained for sometimes as much as 50 years are on any official national, state, or local register. I'll let that sink in. So what you have there is a list of the Summit County historical properties and their designation, official designation. So the intergovernmental agreement was step 1 of getting our properties on a register. So first the county had to sign it and then they sent it to the town. So without that happening by August 1st, I wouldn't be standing here. So thank you so much for your prompt response and your support. That was filed on August 1st. And then our next deadline was last Friday of October 4th. They approved 2 of our 5 properties as being significant enough to file an application. That's the 1883 Dillon Schoolhouse and the Rice Barn in unincorporated Summit County. Only 2 of the 5 passed. We'll pursue a few others of those at another time, but we did then submit the application to the state for our two properties to be on the state register. So without step one, we wouldn't be at step two, of which the state told us would be a 1 to 2 year process. We got it accomplished in 4 months. So the staff was great. Y'all did your job. I'm here just to say thank you and look at that list. That's from the History Colorado website of the properties. I do know of one more. The Watley Homestead buildings are not listed there, so we'll be updating their website. But that's not many historical properties in Summit County. Questions?
I asked you a good question. You asked me to ask it again, but I don't remember exactly what it was. The historic park in Frisco is not included?
The historic park in Frisco, I mean, there are some very glaring things, but if the local doesn't apply to be on those registers, the state doesn't come look for you. So this is really a preservation movement that I found in the Summit County Journals and the Summit Daily News, that in 1997, someone else stood here and said we should have a Dillon Historic Park. We're almost 30 years later. Okay, now's the time. So the question that you asked was, does the 1883 Dillon Schoolhouse apply even though it's been moved from the old town of Dillon? So I asked the state rep who goes on to the federal, I said, Damien, do you live in Denver? And he said, yes. I said, do you like water? He said, yes. And I said, well, that's why this building was moved. It was the 1883 Dillon Schoolhouse was approved to be on the state register. So I don't know whether we're on uncharted waters at this point with it, but it's pretty exciting, even though that building has been moved from its original location. But again, we'll be working with the whole county and all of these historical properties. I'm sure each one of you can think of at least one that should be on this registry.
Several people in town live in homes that is a private home separate from something that has a more of a public use?
You know, that's a great question. It really isn't. We're addressing only the properties that we currently preserve. And so I think that it does speak to having a conference of information of that kind. But there's no attempt to, go out and say, no, we're going to take your building or anything like that. This is to be on a register, and it also helps with visitation and being on their apps and people who like history.
And so those two cabins behind.
The two cabins, even though I did fight hard for the one that came from Keystone, it's workforce housing, in my opinion. It's worthy of everyday person. The summer cabin that we are currently putting the roof on, again to the staff for the help with that, we don't know the history totally of that. The one that I will fight for is the Myers cabin. That was a homestead cabin. We know the background. We know who built it. We knew where it was the whole time. That one wasn't approved, but we'll apply for a variance on that one. It just means that we can apply for state funds that come from the gaming fund for any of the improvements. Good questions. Any others? Yes, ma'am.
Does it exempt you from, let's say, like having to do ADA updates?
ADA, historical properties, I worked at Colonial Williamsburg when ADA came in. And that debate was, okay, how do we have a colonial road and ADA? You are grandfathered in to a certain extent with that, but we certainly do want these to be accessible. So we are looking at how we would do that. The schoolhouse is probably the easiest one to make accessible through the front with a ramp. And Jordan Bennett is the director, and she's very versed in the ADA, but certainly it'll be one that will be considered. And as we develop the park, we want that to be walkable as well. Not an easy thing to accomplish always, but certainly it's in our thoughts. But thank you so much for your promptness of that agreement, or I wouldn't be standing here today, and we would be at that 1 to 2 year mark. And we're happy to be here 4 months later.
Thanks for doing
Yep.
what you guys do.
Thank you.
And then I have another sign-in sheet featuring Andrew Iwashko. You would state your name and address for the record, and then I'll start your 5-minute timer.
Of course. My name is Andrew Owashko. I go by Andre. I currently live in 75 Vendette Point in Silverthorne, Colorado. Was a longtime resident here at 105 Village Place. And even more excitingly, I can finally say is I get to be a future business owner here in the Dillon Core area. And that is why I'm here to not only formally, reintroduce myself, but also discuss some detailed manners that just I'm learning along the way. But the first part, would love to formally, again, state on behalf of myself and then my friend Jonathan Grove, who's unfortunately working right now, can't join us, that, again, we're super excited to finally get this espresso bar opening up in the Dillon Core area. And that building is 124 Main Street. It will be in Unit 107. Again, this has been a dream of ours for, several years now. And, the opportunity finally arose where something viable, that's been evaluated over the last month and a half to see if this is going to be a viable venture. And it seems like it will be. And again, we are so excited to start serving the Dillon community. But before I get caught up on all the romantic sides of opening up a cafe, I did come here to kind of focus on some important details, as there's a lot of hard work ahead because it is going to be a tenant build out. We want to open by Thanksgiving break. And to do that, we have to make a lot of decisions and figure a lot of items out. But first, before I dive into that, I want to also thank town staff that I have worked with up to this point. They have been extremely helpful, answering my questions. And I do want to just stress those interactions, those conversations that you have, whether it's once a week, emailing an answer back, it really, really makes a big difference for some local that wants to open up a business here in the Dillon Core area, because we all have other jobs. We're all working a lot, and, we can work very late into the night, but to move things along, having those items is very, very useful. And I just want to continue to stress that to build Dillon out to all the potential that I see Dillon has. And that's why I'm so I didn't want to open up a cafe anywhere else besides the Dillon Core area. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. There's a lot of people that want to do that work. And to do that, we all have to work together. And I know it's a lot of work, but just wanted to stress that out. Before I run out of time, I did want to come and follow up on the points that Eddie O'Brien made last month on the behalf of our cafe. Really want to say thank you for Eddie for doing that, as unfortunately I was busy trying to win the championship in my bowling league here in Dillon. Of course, didn't have to go down to Denver for that. But the points that he brought up were hopefully, the waiving of the parking fees associated with transitioning a business from a retail to a food and beverage space. And then speaking of some sort of financial agreement that can become to help with the exterior improvement in that 124 Main Street, kind of that Main Street parking lot. I was just there over the weekend, getting glue off the residual glue from ripping out the carpet and just stepping out. I see what this place is and what it's going to be. And I would love to be part and help with the improvement of that experience that will help draw people to stay, not only grab their coffee and go enjoy the lake or drive to work, but actually stay in that Dillon Core area, having long conversation, maybe move on to the next business, because I think that's how this town should grow organically, have those complementary businesses. And I think having little items like a mural painted on that concrete wall, it goes a long way. But for someone starting a business, those little items is something that I just cannot afford right now. And any sort of, town assistance, any sort of sales tax incentive, those things really go a long way in helping that, come into fruition in the long run. I'm not going anywhere. So I'm super excited to be, part of these discussions and finding ways to work out so we can mutually, obviously as a business owner, I'm going to be doing stuff to help, the future of my business and my livelihood, as I'm putting a lot of eggs in this basket. But, I kind of want to just wrap it up there, because I could probably talk about a million things, as it's hard to go to sleep these days with all these things in the mind. But again, just want to formally introduce myself and see if you have any, urgent questions or concerns or just ideas. I want to hear them all, because we're building it, for the Dillon community. Like, we're trying to take care of our locals, the people that, don't need to get in their car and drive to somewhere to grab coffee so they can just walk on over and we can take care of them. That's what we're trying to bring. So again, thank you.
Keep working with staff. I think I told Eddie, but we've got money for these things.
Right.
This is exactly how we want to spend money on.
Absolutely. And those items too, like some other ones that I would love to bring up if I still have time, is like the ability to have outdoor seating. That's something that can be obviously taken in and out, but that is town owned property. The unit that I'm in, the property ends right where the roof ends. And yes, I can fit maybe 1 or 2 seats, but we want at least 8 people sitting on those concrete, that area right there, that's empty space right now, instead of just 2 people sitting out there. So that would go a long way. I also think strategic lighting, little things that over time, which, I'm sure you already have several committees that, have these ideas and, are trying to make them happen. But those are just some other ones I wanted to point out.
I mean, I think put your ass together, put it on paper. And we make a formal decision.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you so much. And looking forward to, yeah, Andre. Yeah.
Andre,
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
nice to see you.
Absolutely. You'll be seeing a lot of me. I guarantee you that. Awesome. Thank you.
Anyone else here to make a public comment tonight? Okay, we're gonna move right along to item 6, presentation of the preliminary 2025 budget. Mary Kay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. So over the past several work sessions, I've presented the various funds, and today I'm pulling them all together and presenting the full budget. And we will hold a public hearing on November 12th. It will be advertised on November 1st with the full budget. And I just wanted to point out some highlights. And the general fund is balanced. Revenues are projected to be flat from 23 and 24. We are budgeting revenue very conservatively. And this was a challenging budget. It's tight. And we do have revenues covering expenditures by about 142,000. And we have reserves of about 3.7 million in cash after reserves of 347,000. And, I've appreciated the conversation tonight, and I do think that council and staff can put their heads together and look into some creative revenue generating opportunities, whether that's through tax, potentially. We were tossing around in our department meeting today, maybe a ticket tax for the amphitheater. Just ways to be creative about revenue and to set ourselves up in a situation where we're in a flat revenue environment with rising expenses, how we can grow our revenue. And I also appreciated John's comment as well about bond issuance. I think we have, an opportunity with the 5A fund to look into a bond issuance as well. We will be looking at that, John, and looking at different scenarios. So definitely appreciate your comment there. We're just looking for, opportunities to be creative and to think about what we can do to leverage, our current assets. So I just wanted to mention that. And, as far as capital projects, we've had to, prioritize the capital projects. We had pushed town hall improvements to 26, and we've actually moved those back to 25. There's some safety, safety projects involved in that, and we feel that that's a priority, especially with what we've just gone through with the election and everything. So we're definitely looking to push that to 25. The police department facility analysis, if we do sign the IGA with Keystone, we would split that 50-50. They would pick up 100,000 of that. And so that's also a capital project that we have slated for 25, as well as marina boat ramp engineering and dock repairs. And we have some park improvements that we've included as the Town Park Phase 2 design and the Town Park Plaza construction. And we also have our standard annual equipment and vehicle purchases and debt service. Street projects, as I've gone over this all before, but I'm just reiterating this just to pull it all together. The street projects for 25, we are including the Three Rivers Drainage Project, street overlays, and debt service. And then water and sewer funds, we are still awaiting the recommendation of the 24-25 rate study. We won't have that until early 25. Currently, we have a 2% volume charge increase, which is pretty standard year over year that we've had. And we have no increases in water capital fee or sewer fees at this time. But we're going to be evaluating that with a new rate study. So Scott and I will be, reviewing that and making our recommendation there. And, as far as the special revenue funds, parking and conservation trust are pretty straightforward. It's the housing 5A that we went over in depth earlier tonight. And, Nathan explained the 1.5 million for housing helps. And, you obviously had a lengthy conversation about 5A. So in a nutshell, all these funds the budgets are in balance. We do need to watch our expenses and because we're protecting flat revenue. And we'll be putting our heads together, I think, over the next, several months to the next year to figure out ways that we can generate new revenue potentially. And I'm certainly open to any questions that you might have.
I've got one. What do we have in the 2025 budget for engineering for seawall?
Nothing for 25. We've pushed that out.
Okay, I was gonna.
Yes.
Say
Yes.
that's
And we are,
$4.5 million, I don't think.
yeah, and that's an in and out actually. So in the capital budget, because we will be financing that through a bond issuance most likely. So yes, that's not a factor for 25 at all.
This, this is probably not really a you right in this moment question, but I wonder if we consider something like a vacancy tax, not for homes, but for commercial spaces, like the longer that Bed Bath and Beyond sits vacant, that they have to pay the town some sort of fee where they have this sort of primo spot that they own. But if they're not generating revenue, then it's not really a commercial property and they're, something along those lines. Have you seen that anywhere? Like vacant commercial property
I
fees?
have not. I've heard of them. I haven't seen them in Colorado. And if you found some here in the state?
No, this is San Francisco.
Oh, well, they have them in San Francisco.
For commercial?
But you have,
Oh,
as home rule city, you have a very broad taxing authority as long as the voters approve the tax. So,
That has to be.
yeah, absolutely.
Is that something that you all would want to consider for like a future agenda list?
A disincentive to keep a building empty,
Do we have anybody coming forward regarding that building?
I would rather use incentives to lure businesses.
yeah.
I would rather-
Reaching out to people, Buffalo Wild Wings, whoever, say, hey, we can deal for you.
Well, and your first opportunity to refer a tax would be November of 2025. So there's no rush for you all to
so we'll take
figure
it
out
another
what you want
time.
to do.
I have seen good articles that you might not have seen about residential vacancy tax, but I've never seen commercial.
Well, right.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of conversations recently about residential vacancy taxes that different communities are trying, but.
Mhm. Yeah, this article
Maybe-
might benefit council, so
Yeah.
I don't know if it's been circulated, but I can certainly forward it.
Question, Mary Kay.
Hmm?
$1 million for amphitheater in 2027. What's in when? Plan for that?
What page are you looking at?
I'm doing capital improvement fund. Theater improvements, $1 million in 2027. I'm just curious.
Yeah, honestly, I'm not exactly sure what that is for 27. Maybe Scott can speak to that.
Yeah, it's probably a placeholder.
There's a placeholder, there's a line of projects we reviewed. I'm not exactly sure. I think there was something about the sound system had to be upgraded every so many
I
years.
saw that in there too.
Yeah, that's actually a different line item. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's money. Cool. Okay. Couple more kind of questions. The park we had, reserved parking was relatively successful this year. I would like to give credit to the amphitheater folks since, what did they say, 80% of the parking revenue that we made this year was based on parking per show. Trying to see the that's team like even, so fair to give them.
It's going into the parking fund. So,
That would,
I mean,
that would definitely be a policy decision from by
Yeah.
you all.
Yeah.
Back when we did the paid parking, the overnight paid parking, the council at the time decided to put that money back into basically the parking lots.
I'm thinking if we, I would like to also have that money, because the way Breck uses their parking lot is they use that money for transportation as well. I would like to give us the same flexibility to ever need. Have shuttle buses from their storage, have sense that use that amphitheater parking money to help people get to the amphitheater.
Can we use it?
'cause- yeah, I mean, maybe that's a question for Jeff is, it's a
And-
parking
and-
fund. Can you use transportation from parking to the amphitheater? With the parking fund monies?
I mean,
I would think so.
Probably. I want to see the sort of legal context of that
Right,
rather than just answer that cold.
right.
But probably.
Yeah.
I mean, is there any way we could use it to put back into the amphitheater for improvements or no?
This is a fee.
It's a parking, like to see concerts, it's premium parking.
Oh.
Parking fee, reserved parking fee.
Yeah, I think probably it's the same thing I was talking about earlier.
Mhm.
Whereas a fee, there has to be some nexus to the purpose for which the fee was assessed.
Mhm.
But the courts are pretty liberal on
So if
that.
we wanted to like add some seating, like 500 to 600 seats, like bench seating.
Maybe.
Maybe?
well, it's not gonna be under $300,000, which is what that parking fund was. And
Well, I mean, it could go towards it.
And also that number, as we've heard a bunch of times, is sort of subject to the fire department, so we need more facilities before we can have more. But sure, I mean, I think transportation, that's like, to me, that's like a very clear line of,
Mhm.
we're trying to improve the parking at the amphitheater, so by taking this shuttle bus,
Yeah,
the
shuttle bus
parking
and offsite
situation
parking.
is better, and that's like a very clear connection to me.
I would think, yeah.
So MK, I do see $102,000 seawall engineering entry for 2020. Did we spend that this year?
I believe it's being spent right now.
We'll have to check on that one.
Yeah. It is in the 24 estimate.
Personally, I'm in favor of pushing that stuff out because I don't think a $45 million seawall is in our budget. So if we could defer the engineering for that, is that money better somewhere else?
When is this budget gonna
Yeah.
be finalized?
We've got the public hearing set for November 12th.
Any other questions or comments for Mary Kay?
Thank you, Mary Kay, for everything that you do.
Thank you.
And John Woods, thanks for the parking because we've got that,
Yeah.
we generated that revenue. That we owe that to John Woods.
Yeah.
It was his idea. He implemented it. So thank you.
To be reflected in your balance.
Yes.
I have enough enemies.
He's the
Thanks, Mary
expert.
Kay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, John.
Up next, we have item 7, consideration of resolution number 5724, series of 2024, resolution approving a consulting agreement with Advanced Engineering and Environmental Services LLC for the Dillon Water and Sewer Modeling.
So besides our water plant and our co-ownership of the sewer plant, we also have a distribution system, which of course are the water mains that go throughout the community underground. We also have a collection system, which are the sewer mains that are also around the community. And so we have fairly sophisticated computer models of both the distribution and the collection system. And those models have data inputted into them, what their elevation is, what the size of the pipe is, what the velocity is, what the pressure is, so on and so forth. So there's all these attributes and data that go into the model. And so we use these models, not only does Dan use these models, but also Ned uses these models for engineering, planning purposes and for water and sewer purposes. So our water model is complete. Our sewer model is only partially complete. So Dan, Ned, and I got together and we talked. We have a desire to update the water model. The last update was done by AE2S. Alex is here. There's Alex over there. So he did 2019, so right before COVID. And the sewer was actually, the partial sewer was done a little bit previous to that. But like I said, it's only a partial model. And so we desire to have a complete model on the sewer and update the water model. These are handy tools to have, like I said, not only from an engineering perspective, but from a planning perspective. If you're considering some town center project and you want to have a change a building and maybe have a multi-story, multi-use building, we're able to take these models and we're able to plug in what we think the EQRs, what the projected demand is going to be. What are the fire flows going to look like? Do pipe sizes need to be increased in certain sections of our system? So on and so forth. And so we would like to go ahead and have this work done now. This is not something that we actually budgeted for this year, but there is money available in Dura, which we think is appropriate because this is really kind of development related for these models. So we reached out since Alec did the last update for us. We reached out to AE2S for a proposal to update these models for us. So it's $34,000. We'd do a supplemental appropriation through Dura for that. I'd be happy to answer any questions. And Alex is here too, if you want to know more technical aspects of the water sewer hydraulic models.
Questions or comments for Scott or Alex? How far up into people's sewer pipes do you go?
Go ahead.
Be able to see if they've got a deficient personal pipe in their backyard that they need to go.
No, we focus on the town-owned assets, so typically they own the gravity collection system, at least on the water side. Curb stop into your property is owned by the property owner most of the time, changes district to district. We're really focused on the larger 6-inch and larger mains for water system, same with the gravity sewer system. And basically all we do is spatially allocate the demand. So you guys have smart meters, I think, forget the exact brand, but we spatially allocate that. And the hydraulic model knows like, hey, if we have a big demand in this area, we can see how that affects performance. Likewise, it translates onto the collection system, right? You have this big demand, it's got to go somewhere. Is our pipe size big enough to handle that and get that down to the JSA? So it's really focused on the town infrastructure.
So on water, we know a little more accurately because of the smart meters. On sewer, we have to estimate per EQR because obviously that's, you can't meter that. So, but we do know what every service hookup, water and sewer is everywhere in the town. We have data on all of that, but it's not a part of this study. We're mainly looking at the mains for this. Will they support the flows and the demand and so on and so forth for that segment?
I had a quick question for Mike and, for my neighbors. Are you familiar with Dillon Bay and their sewage problem?
Yes. It's a private lift station.
It's private?
It is.
So their problem.
It's their problem. Sorry, I knew what the question was because, so there's a little lift station in that development that takes it from the one building basically to the south, goes in that lift station, then pumps it up to the building on the north, and then it joins our sewer main and runs the rest of the way. But no, that is private and has always been private.
Their insurance, is it backing up?
Yeah.
And their insurance have gone through the roof, backed up several times.
So not only does it back up, but when it's low enough that when the reservoir is very high, I believe that there's quite a bit of I that
Yeah.
occurs at that location. So are you know which one it is?
I know the
It's-
general
yeah,
area.
yeah. But, yeah, it's been an issue for some time.
Is that on the record? Sorry.
That was definitely on the record. Great. Any other questions for Scott? I would entertain a motion to approve resolution number 57. For a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Tyne,
Yes.
Woods,
Yeah.
Buck.
Yep.
Memora,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Member Rivera.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Up next is the town manager's update, Nathan.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Couple quick updates. Highway 6 sidewalk is going great. We had one snafu. We hit a fiber line, CDOT's fiber line. We're working to get that corrected here, hopefully very soon. And then another thing that I wanted to mention that's not in the written report, we are actively working with the town of Keystone on the law enforcement side of things. We're hoping to have something wrapped up here by the end of the month. Clearly, it's a little bit challenging, especially for Mary Kay and our finance staff to put together a budget when we have some projects out there lingering. So we're trying to get that wrapped up ASAP. We're meeting with them later this week, so hopefully we could potentially bring an IGA forward at the next meeting on the 22nd, but if not, in November. So a lot of moving parts there, and I also want to give a shout out to Adrienne. You know, we had the special election. She put in a lot of hard work and long hours, so that's off to her. Yeah. And I should also say Joanne Tyson too. She helped as well. So, and that's all I have. Thanks.
Question for you, Nathan. When would we be seeing money from Stone Services?
Well, that's what we're trying to work out. Our preliminary IGA has us starting service January 1st. So it's going to be a very quick turnaround if we can agree to some terms and see what we can collectively make happen.
Any other questions or comments for Nathan? Thanks, Nathan. Up next, we have the mayor's update. I think I'm hearing it in the conversation we're having here today. But my hope is the result of this special election is that the council is a little more willing to listen to what the people are willing to tolerate in town. And I think I'm hearing that from our conversation here tonight of let's run it by the people. Let's see what everyone's open to. And I think that's the way this should be run. So I'm happy to hear that Nathan's heading to, and John are heading to Jackson Hole next week to go to Mountain Towns and also a CAS meeting. So I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys get out of that. Especially as we talk about sort of our energy goals, what we can do. Questions or comments for me? Also, I guess one more thing. For this is a much improved version of what we originally saw from Tony and the school district. I think it sort of makes it look like it's, at first they were, these dots didn't look very fair, but they definitely made it look more fair. And I think this is a great program, and I don't agree with every part of it, but I really hope this passes. This is the school district question. If anybody wants a copy of these, did they leave any extras for us?
I've got one extra right here.
We've got some of these, if anyone wants to take a look at them. It basically sort of lays out what they're gonna be doing if they get this bond passed, so they've got a lot of good projects on here. I think it would benefit all of our kids and sort of workforce going forward. We had mayors and managers last week. There was one item on the agenda. But what was it? Oh, the Summit Daily? The one thing on the agenda, and Summit Daily's not here. The one thing on the agenda is the Summit Daily is not letting candidates put in personal content into the Summit Daily anymore. So during elections, if you want to learn about a candidate, you will not be doing it through the Summit Daily. So we were sort of talking about that and how that affects all of us. And not just for elections for electing people, but you know, for the school district or for if Dylan wants to put something out there and they don't want to have any sort of involvement in politics, I guess. So,
Well, they'll probably sell you an ad, I would think, right?
well, I don't know.
Well,
I
that's,
think,
well,
yeah.
that's a business issue, but I don't know either about which is.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they're gonna do that or not, but if you do see one, maybe it is, they had to buy their way into the Summit Daily, so it might not be as fair as I think it is. Could be, so. Keep that in mind going forward. And one thing we talked about was writing a letter actually from all the towns. And we didn't draft anything, but one idea that we threw out was maybe all the towns want to get together and write the Summit Daily a letter and say, this is a service you provide to our community to let people understand who the candidates are for different elections. And by refusing to do that, you know, there is no platform for knowing who's out there. So that's one thought. And I don't know if they're letting you buy them because Eric said one of the things, they're not letting letters to the editor on any sort of issue stuff. So it's only going to be based on non-town stuff. Yeah, Scott?
Did I also read that in the
Right, exactly. Right, exactly. No political anything in the Summit Daily anymore.
Interesting, following the referendum system.
They broke it themselves. So if anyone has an opinion on that, feel free to share it to me. And basically what we were talking about is all the towns saying, hey, we want to put our candidates in the paper and, you know, what do you want us to do to put our candidates in and inform people about what's available? If you have an opinion or one way or another, feel free to let me know. Questions or comments? Councilman, committee reports? Got my annual Northwest Cog budget meeting next week.
I have to make a comment. I want to amend my earlier statement that Dillon Bay is a place that you do want to live because it has the most spectacular views of Lake Dillon in Summit County. And I'm sure they're going to get their sewage problems worked out. So I highly recommend that anyone that's looking for a nice place to live, check out Dillon Bay. I also wanted to say that we all, Rachel, Renee, Carolyn, Oliver and I, and Nathan all attended the COO breakfast this past Friday, and it's a who's who event of Summit County. Do you agree? And took great opportunity to network with everybody. I did look for Ken Riley because I wanted to make some progress with our collaboration with the Keystone, but he did not attend. But a lot of other good conversations were there. Good time was had by all, right?
Any other council member comments or committee reports? Next agenda item is adjournment. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. 7:42 and this meeting is adjourned.
Yeah, that's-